Hi everybody, welcome to Play by Play. My name is Sean Bouchard. I am super excited to be playing a couple of really interesting games about relationships tonight. The first one is going to be Apartment. This is a demo for a game that is currently on Kickstarter, so it's currently trying to get funding to finish, but they have a demo, and I'm really interested to play it. I'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. First, I'm gonna try something a little bit different with the format tonight. I'm gonna try to stick to short segments. I'm usually pretty bad at that, but I'm gonna try to do it this time. And then at the end of each gameplay segment, I'm going to do like a one-question Q&A, just about like what has just happened in the game. And then we'll do a normal Q&A at the end as well. So if your question doesn't get answered, then we'll do it later. But if you have a good question, put it in the chat, and the mods will pick one out for the end of the segment. So we're going to try that. We're going to see how that goes. I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be a good format. I'm really excited about this game. So let me tell you a little bit about this game. Apartment was a MFA thesis project at USC 1 year ago. So the graduating class a year ago, pretty sure that's right. Yeah. The developers of this game are friends of mine. And I have a cat. Cat, you're not supposed to be up here. Cat, can you just want to get your tail in the... No, come on, come down. Yes. So Apartment was an MFA thesis project. It's a game about a breakup and that explores different kinds of relationships. It's a very narrative-heavy game, and this is kind of, I think, the most narrative-heavy game that I've done since Papo.io, which was a lot of fun. That was the first game that I did on Play by Play, and it's also, you know, the most sort of like emotionally like tugging at strings sort of game. So I'm excited about that. I have played some of this, Cat. What the hell? Seriously. No, I'm not kidding. Really. Come here. No, come here. Get on screen, right? This is going to be forever now. You're going to be on the internet forever. Okay. Come on. So I've played some of this. I've played maybe most of this, but I played it a year ago, and it's been touched up since then. And so I'm expecting there to be stuff that I haven't seen in the game. So we'll see. Like I think there's going to be lots to talk about in terms of like how the story is presented and how you do interactive narrative. And certainly the game does a lot of really interesting things with text. So we're going to explore that stuff. Here we go. I always talk about title screens, right? I always talk about like first experiences. Antechamber, the first experience of like it drops you right into the world and there's already a clock ticking. This is similarly, there's no title screen here, right? It doesn't say Apartment. But this is actually kind of like a really neat screen. I like the use of all of this negative space, all of just the white space, I guess, around. I was thinking about London. We should travel more. It gives me a very strong cue. Like, subtle, this W, like, tells me how to move, but without being super intrusive. And look at that text in 3D space. It's a neat effect. You hated London. Food poisoning. That gross hotel room, the conversations like you have. But that's not how I remember it. I remember being there with you. I'd do it again. You're such a sap, Nick. I love you. Night. The door slamming shut is fantastic. So there is a title screen. That's a pre-title segment. That's a what do they call that in television? That's a cold open, right? Which is neat. So click and hold to start. Apartment, noun, literally, a separated place. Here I am, in my apartment. Oh, I get a mouse hint. Again, okay, so it cued me the first time to hold, and now if I just click, nothing really happens. But I've been sort of cued that I should hold. Oh, look at that. I should put it down on paper. Get everything out of my head. This is an interesting interaction where if I try to move while I'm doing this, it sort of fades out. It actually gives me kind of this sense of like having a hard time concentrating. Like this is a thing that I'm trying to think about, but I can't. I have to like really just stand there and think about it in order to do that. So these are like blank frames, which suggests that I can click on things. I should put it down on paper, get everything out of my head. Same message. Now I'm actually, oh, look at this. I don't have to click on things. I just have to click. And when I click, I can see these words appear sort of all over the place, and I can actually see sort of through walls. I get, you know, X-ray vision when I click. What happened to us? But when I move around, it stops. So again, this evokes it for me a sense of like being thoughtful. As I move around this space, I can't really grab on to any of these thoughts, any of these little clouds. But if I stay still, then it becomes really easy. She's at work right now. Maybe she'll come back after her day ends. I'm gonna explore some more of these clouds. 4 years and she just ends it. She's not coming back. I want to see if there are more clouds around. Can I open doors? I can't really open doors because the only action that I have is this click, and the click is this like think about things. Okay, but there are objects, right? Like most obviously maybe this easel. So when I click on that, something different happens. One of the first things Madison told me was how much she loved to paint. She hasn't touched a canvas in months since work picked up. So Madison, I assume, and maybe Nick. Okay, so I exhausted that. That's information that I got, but now there's no, it doesn't glow anymore. I swiped this from the bar on a dare. It became Madison's favorite glass. She said it reminded her of the night we met. No complaining. So this is sort of building up a real sense of history for the characters. Like, I don't know a lot about Madison. I know that she was an artist who had sort of stopped making things. I think that's on the other side of the wall. Yeah, I can't get to that. And I know that we met 4 years ago, and I know that she left. Oh, there it is. My textbooks from grad school. These are from the class I was taking the semester I met Madison. there's not like a real strong connection between these comic panels and the narrative behind them. Like, this doesn't really say anything to me about the class that he was taking or about the books. But it is obviously everything in the apartment is focused around Madison and like the memories of her specifically and of the relationship. But it seems like mostly like things that he remembers about her. Oh, look at this. Okay, so these are the comic panels that we sort of discovered by wandering around and looking at things that reminded us of her, of Madison. And now we've completed a comic. Oh, look at this. I met her 4 years ago at Ben's birthday party. I kind of really like the effect. I think I like the effect of the comic in the background in the world is like shifting in the same way that the comic in like HUD space is shifting. Aren't you Madison, Ben's infamous friend? Infamous? Yeah, he told me about your DJing debut. If we could call it DJing. I don't see Ben often these days. Guess his partying days are over. I'm not so sure about that. Even business school can't keep that guy down. He's trying to make the moves on our econ professor. Let me guess. Blonde, curvy, and old enough to be his mother. Oh god, he is maturing. So aside from hijacking DJ booths, what do you do? Professionally? Advertising, but I'm trained as a painter. You're the artsy type. I guess. Artsy isn't quite the word. Artsy implies pop art, do-it-yourself crafts, comics and stuff. I'm a fine artist. She realized her voice had dropped, that she had been biting into the words. She retreated back into party chatter. What do you do outside of grad school? I like to draw comics and stuff. How about I show you a few over dinner? A little bit of a meet cute here, although I don't know, it doesn't explore it that much, but there's a little bit of a, so I don't know if you guys don't know the term meet cute. Meet cute is the industry term for the scene in a romantic movie where the lead couple meet for the first time and something cute happens. So, you know, she drops her books in the, like, they bump into each other and he knocks her books into the puddle and she gets really angry. And that's like a cute moment that defines their meeting. It's not just like a random, they say hello and that's it. Like, something cute has to happen. There's a little bit of a meet cute here where she's, she talks down a little bit about pop art and making comics, and then it turns out that he makes comics. But the narrative doesn't play that up, which I think is interesting. Like, I think it'd be easy to make that into kind of a humorous little scene. I think the fact that it doesn't means that it's trying to play a slightly more subtle game. It's trying to be a little bit more real world. You know, like it's trying to evoke a real conversation where you might not have exactly that kind of reaction. Okay, so now I'm in a different space. I've always loved telling stories about other people. It's easier. I like that. That's actually, it's kind of interesting. Sometimes I wonder what's inside these other apartments. What kinds of stories? I'm chasing text now. I see there's text written on the walls. John Liu. I think he's divorced. It seems like he spends a lot of time traveling for work. John Liu. Can I interact with that? I guess not. May and William. They're a really adorable old couple. I sometimes see them feeding the fish when their grandchildren are visiting. I assume that I can't go in any of these doors. Oh, but I can kind of look in the apartments. Ooh, this is a little creepy. This is a little rear window. There's like a I can never remember the word for that. Voyeuristic. There's a little bit of a voyeuristic thing going on. Jim moved in around the same time I did. We hung out a couple times. I'm not sure what he's up to these days. It's also interesting that he has sort of paintings on the wall, like picture frames, empty picture frames. The Wrights. I'm not sure what he does, but I think she's a novelist. Madison got her to autograph a bunch of books. I'm just admiring the like white, the way that the contours of this space are sort of textured in a way that like you can see them from a distance, but when you're up close, you like completely lose those walls, those corners. Okay, so I'm outside. Here's Nick Connor and Madison. That's a nice way to actually call out the relationship. Okay, I'm gonna come back over here. Now I can't seem to click on any of these things. I know that a part of this game is actually exploring these other relationships. So I'm going to go back and try again to like open. Oh, look at that. That door opened. Maybe I just had to pick the right door. This is okay. I love actually this minigame. So I'm typing The Winter Romance in progress by Rose Wright. Lee had spent her whole life waiting on men to make moves. Her dating life was one big game of chess. Her therapist had once described her as meek and lacking in boldness, too afraid to initiate out of fear of rejection. Her therapist had not told her this, of course. She had read it, while he thought she wasn't watching him right. Now, today, was the big day. Can I just say, okay, so this is one of the very first things that I tested for this game like 2 years ago when the developers were first starting it. They had this idea that they wanted to do sort of vignettes of different people in different kinds of relationships. This was one of the first prototypes that they created, was a simpler version of this where you had to sort of type. And I loved it from the very first. Not everybody did. I think they've made some really, really strong improvements to it in sort of how it works. But I love the experience of embodying this woman writing. The like actual act of typing out the letters as I like read them feels so much like sitting down at a WordPad and reading. Look at that. My screen just got brighter because I think it's night outside. It's night like in the galactic core, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just supposed to be a night sky. There's something defining about the 5th anniversary for a woman past her 20s. Every woman feels it keenly. Jack had tried to be casual about asking her ring size. He wasn't the jewelry buying type. Her best friend had asked her 3 days before, "What will you do if he doesn't propose?" with mild concern. But Lee wasn't afraid. So as I type, the letters sort of appear in front of me so that I can just keep typing. Oh, here we go. Here's more mechanics. And every time I make a mistake, it shortens that lead time. It gets there's fewer letters, so I feel like I've gotten distracted or I've lost my train of thought. It's really a beautiful mechanic, and they've done a lot of work to make it feel good. Do you want anything to eat, babe? I'm making myself a sandwich. I'm fine, thanks, baby. Winter was always her season. Good things happened. I love how you can see every mistake that I make, because you can see when it shortens again. Her best friend had also asked her, with less mild concern, "Are you sure you love him?" Lee had just laughed. What does anyone know about love? Anyways. Different color. Lee had, do you want anything to eat, babe? I'm making myself a sandwich. Thanks. No thanks. Maybe later. I'm fine. I said no. Prepared for exactly 2 things this morning. The early December chill and her impending discussion with Jack. To cope with her frigid living room, she slipped on socks and her sister's old sweatshirt. So, you guys, I think you can see what's happening, and it's very, very mechanically interesting. That there's a sense of flow. Like when I'm typing, I can type well. And when I don't type well, because I personally make mistakes, then it breaks my concentration just a little bit. Like it pulls back that sense of flow. And when the dialogue pops up, and all of a sudden I have to take my fingers off of the keyboard and move them to the mouse so that I can click buttons, it completely interrupts my sense of flow. To cope with Jack, she had prepared nothing. Her mind was blank. Lee heard the key turn in the lock. Jack knew where the keys to her place were kept, out on the stoop behind the left porch light. He knew everything about her. They had grown comfortable, their roots intertwined. She told herself, with a glance at the ceiling, that good men didn't come along often, and stable men only once in an eternity. Jack was both good and stable. She'd tell him today that she... God damn it. So, this is irritating. This is irritating when I get asked this question, are you hungry? Even though the question itself is sort of theoretically, I mean, it's kind of somebody to offer to make me something to eat, but no, I'm busy. I'm doing this. Spend her life with him. And if... Oh, God damn it. How do you want to proceed after last night? That was a mistake. I'm going to bury that and forget it happened. Oh, God. There's stuff going on. Was that a kiss or the Vietnam War? My head's all weird right now. I kind of want to see what is being typed back. Oh, God. Well, the important question is, did you like it? I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to write. Just let me write my novel as he. No, that's okay. Thank you. As he walked in, Jack felt bad news was headed for him. He could see it written in the line of Lee's mouth. He tried to kiss her, and she turned her head slightly. Right then, he knew. "You're leaving me," he said. "I'm sorry," she replied. "Do I get to know why?" Lee didn't know how to begin telling him in thanks, no, thank you, thanks, no, 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 it's okay. In the end, damn it, she didn't. She couldn't cut him like that. It was too cruel. To her, Jack meant a life of apathy. She had to shatter that comfort, break the roots, and crawl out of the corpse. So you can see I'm getting like really agitated by the interruptions. When I'm not interrupted, then I can type much better. At least it seems like that. Whereas when I get interrupted every once in a while, it really destroys my concentration in a way that makes me feel more likely to make mistakes and makes me get more frustrated every time I make a mistake. She hadn't decided to fall for someone else, but somehow, damn it, she had. So there's a little bit of parallelism between the narrative that's being written and the sort of sense of story that we get in the world about a woman who is not perfectly happy in her relationship and has had some kind of relationship external to that, whether it's a fling or a kiss or just a crush. I don't know what this is. It had started the same way that winter had began, abrupt and all-consuming. So that sounds intense. Here we go. Back to the drawing desk. And now I know my mechanics. I can hold down the button and look around. When she found my porn collection, she laughed. We'd go one by one, reading the movie titles aloud, waiting to see who would laugh first. I would catch her reading my comics from time to time. Still couldn't tell if she liked them. Very endearing sort of moments from this relationship. Alright, I'm gonna do this because I think I know how this works. She left her keys here, telling me that I wouldn't have to change the locks, as if she was doing me a favor. So that's interesting. I can't remember if it worked this way the first sort of scene, the first act, but the memories in here are sort of very, very warm, very endearing, and then as soon as you leave this room, the first thing that you're hit with is she's gone. And this is a little bitter. Right? This is a different kind of memory. Alright, I'm gonna look at remote control. Before Madison moved in, I could never find the stupid remote. Now I always know where it is. Reading my comics. I saw that one. She always panicked when she lost her keys. They were usually in plain sight. There's a theme here sort of about losing things and finding things, which is interesting. I don't know if I'm reading into that. Is there a comic over here that I didn't? This book. The Watchers. Copyright cleared. Good. Sometimes it doesn't feel like my apartment anymore. There are too many things we don't see eye to eye on. Interesting. Interesting, this sense that even though she's gone now, it still doesn't feel like his apartment because he still thinks about it in terms of her. Which again, like, there's sort of a sense to these other things, to like the remote control, right? The remote control was about how the space has changed, or his relationship to the space has changed since she's gone. No more girly shower products. I would accidentally use her soap sometimes. At least now I won't smell like flowers. Oh, I kind of like smelling like flowers. Nick is the kind of boy who does not want to smell like flowers. This is what I've learned. So more of the apartment is opened up to me. I can go outside. But the world outside of the apartment kind of doesn't exist, right? The apartment is the only space that actually it behaves as though it's real. There's more stuff. Yeah, here we go. She hated cooking. I liked trying out new recipes. I hated cleaning. She found dishwashing therapeutic. What a perfect match. Seems like, right? Seems like they were a perfect match. Why did they break up? Why did she leave? After Madison moved in, she would help me cook dinner almost every night. I'd get her to chop vegetables or stir sauces. Little things. Again, it sort of feels a little weird that there's such a disconnect between that visual panel and the narrative that precedes it. Although now I have a better understanding of like what it's for. So I think now that I've gotten all of those panels, I'm going to come over here and yeah, look at that lighting cue, right? Look at how, all right, let's just look at this right here. Look at how cool the color palette is. It's all blues and grays, like bright blues. You got the carpet, you've got the couch is like a very saturated blue. You've got these little misty clouds of haze in front of white objects that are blue. You've got this baby blue wall in the back. And then everything that's a warm color, that's like a red or a yellow or an orange, is muted, is desaturated. It's almost gray. These red books back here are totally washed out. These red cushions are like almost gray. They're not washed out, they're dark, but the color is very, very it's minimized. The saturation of the color is minimized. So this whole view is very cool. It's toned very cool. And I walk into here, and the warmest thing in this room, in like this shot, is that bright yellow light that's shining on the comic that just absolutely draws my eye over there because it's light and because it's a different color. Alright, I'm gonna go through this comic. I paused the movie. Madison cocked her head, perplexed. So I was thinking. A dangerous pastime. They're comfortable with each other. I'm a man of danger anyway. I'm a man of danger, right? Quips back and forth. This feels practiced. This feels like the kind of banter that they've probably had before. Anyway, your lease is ending, right? Why don't you move in with me? Madison studied the still image on the screen. I couldn't read her expression. We've been together for a year. We've gone on trips together. I love you. You love me. We practically live together anyway. I've even started using your fruity shampoo. Yeah, let's do it. Without complaint. That was nice. That was a nice little bit of scripting to have that sort of interrupted moment. It's difficult for me to read, like, but it felt really cool, like just to click the button and have that happen like that. Madison picked the remote from my hand, plucked the remote from my hand. But I am not putting up with your mess. The mountains of dirty clothes have to stop. Deal. Oh, this is sweet. She unpaused the movie as she leaned forward to kiss me. See, I organized all your comics into color-coded bins. Impressive. Frightening, too. You'll learn to love it. Now, if I could only get you to love cooking. You love feeding me. Where did you put Watchmen? I think it's called Watchers, isn't it? Thanks. Try looking for things before you ask for once. A little bit of tension there. I wouldn't have to ask if you hadn't put everything away into bins. They were unsightly. It's like I was rooming with a teenager. She was only half joking. graphic novels aren't just for teenagers. They're getting a lot of recognition. Oh God, that geeky defensiveness. I know that so well. From critics. I know. All right, it drops me back here again. Cool. This is where I'm gonna take a break. Let's jump to a Q&A. Is there a question that I can take now before we take a break and then come back and play through the rest of this demo? What do you guys think? Maybe I should have prepped something. We didn't get a question. Oh, you guys. All right. So, one of the things that I'm noticing, like, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on. We set the scene. We did, we set up this little, what at least I know and expect is going to be a cycle. And then, so we've seen like a couple different parts of that. I love the visuals of this game. I love the just the aesthetic, the color palette. I love how sort of like toned down blue it is. And I love how sort of abstract it is. Like, you know, the spaces that I'm in feel like spaces. They're totally recognizable. They feel filled with things. But everything outside of the apartment feels completely abstract. It feels like there's not a real world out there, that only the apartment is like exists. And then the other thing that we did was the mini game of writing, which like I said, I find that fascinating. I find that such an interesting mechanic, I think it works really well. I'm curious to see like what you guys thought about it. If it comes across in a video, like how that feels to be typing, because there's a real sense, I think, of the agency of that act lends itself narratively to getting into, like, I really felt in the headspace of the person who was writing, and the way that, you know, it created this kind of sense of, even though there was nothing wrong with the relationship, even though, like, you know, it was, there wasn't fighting going on, there was a sense of frustration with it. Okay, real quick, what do you think about games like this one where there's so much text and not a lot of interactivity? Is this really a game? Okay, so a couple of questions here. One is the semantic question of, is this a game? Generally, I don't think that's a useful question, because it sort of boils down to how are we defining different terms. Different people define different terms in different ways, and the word game is loaded. So it's difficult to, like, it's culturally loaded. It's difficult to say, you know, a game is this and not these other things, and not have that mean subjectively that these other things are somehow lesser. It's hard to use game as a term that is a neutral categorization, and that's what a lot of formalists, I think, have in the past tried to do. I'm very attracted to formalism, but I recognize that that categorizing things and saying, like, these are games and these aren't games is a really, like, culturally dangerous thing to do. So my definition of game, personally, the definition that I use, is extremely liberal. And I would definitely call this a game. Like, this falls well within the bounds of what a game is. That definition might vary from person to person, which is why I think that the actual question tends not to be that interesting a question. But the sort of thing behind it, this is a game that has a lot of text, and I think it's interesting to say that it doesn't have a lot of interactivity. I don't know that that's true. It doesn't have a lot of interactivity. The interactivity in this game, so I think about games in terms of mechanics, right? I think about games in terms of the actions that you can take as a player. Sometimes those actions are like you can shoot things with guns and you can kill people. Sometimes those actions are, you can move physical objects around in a space, or you can pick things up and put them together, like a traditional point-and-click adventure game, right? It has a lot of picking up objects and taking them to different places and using them in different situations. Is that more interactivity? I don't know exactly how to, again, this word interactivity, it doesn't have a clear definition to me, because if you talk about the mechanics of this game, I think that it has some very strong mechanics, and those mechanics are around remembering or reminiscing. They're more sort of internal mechanics, but then there are also mechanics that are very, very active, that are very external in the typing game. So I think that game had a great deal of interactivity, what I would call interactivity. I found it extremely engaging, and it was small, right? It was scoped small, but it was elegant, I thought. The fact that it dealt with text a lot, I don't think that directly has any bearing on the amount of interactivity or the amount of like the strength of the mechanics that the game has, or in the amount of agency, which is a more interesting word in my mind. Agency being how much control do you have as a player over what happens in the game. So a movie has no agency, because as a viewer, there's nothing that I can do to affect what's going to happen in the movie. This game feels like it does have a fair bit of agency. It feels like the narrative is linear, like I'm not changing what happens, but I am changing how it's presented. I'm changing how I see it, and like I'm going from room to room and I'm investigating these little memory spots, and I'm building up in my mind as a player a sense of who these characters are and what their relationships to one another are. And the more I play, the more like I walk around the apartment and I think about things in the apartment. I sort of like do this stand still and reminisce. And the more I investigate specific objects, which is analog in the game to drawing these panels of comics, the more I get anecdotes, right? I get like actual specific story elements that I feel like they do a good job of fitting together in kind of a puzzle piece sort of way to build up a larger picture of who Madison was and what Nick and Madison's relationship was, and also kind of like how he remembers it versus how it actually was. And that's sort of a subtle thing, and I'm curious to see how much more of that we get as we progress in the game. I also don't know how long this demo is. I think that I'm going through it slowly, and there are actually several of these little vignettes that we're going to get to see. So I don't know. I'm just going to push forward for a little bit and see where it goes. But I'm curious to see like how these characters build as we go a little bit more into the game. All right, I'm going to take a short break and come back with more Apartment. And if you have more questions, ask them in the chat. I'll do another question at the end of the next segment, and then I'll do a bigger Q&A at the end of the evening. All right, see you guys in just a minute. How do I do this? There we go.